Blacks in Technology.
Blacks in technology. Blacks in technology. Blacks in technology. Blacks in technology. Blacks in technology.
Okay, that's it. Yep, this is working. Welcome, everybody. This is the 5th episode of the Blacks in Technology podcast. We just had a serious technical difficulty there. We had recorded like 25 minutes, almost a half hour worth of material, and had to redo everything because my program crashed. And
Windows, man. Windows. Get a Mac.
It was Windows, as a matter of fact. It's probably the reason. We always, look for places so we can talk about Windows and how bad it is. That's one of them. Windows, you failed me once again. So we're going to go through everything once again. Greg Greenlee here, and along with co-founder, co-owner of Blacks in Technology, Ronnie Hash. And we're going to talk about a few things. We're not going to have any interviews this podcast. We've had like 4 interviews. We interviewed Kai Dupuy, Alfred Green, Cleavon Blair, and Anthony Hall all in the past few weeks. So this week's just going to be me and Ronnie, which is good because it gives us a chance to talk about us, talk about the site, which we really haven't been able to do. I don't even think there's anything on our site, giving people or members or anybody a window into our background and how we got into technology and everything. So this will be a good chance to do that. So let's start off with a couple of things. What's going on with the site? First thing, Blacks in Technology, courtesy of BlackWeb 2.0, and that's blackweb20.com, we've been chosen as a top 50 tech tastemaker. And just to give you a little bit on what that is, I'm going to read an excerpt from their website. It says, here at BlackWeb 2.0, tastemakers are the developers, the thinkers, and the risk takers. They're the entrepreneurs that sink their last dollar into their dream, the writers who report on it, and the evangelists that spread the word. I think this is sponsored by Hewlett-Packard. So it's basically you go to blackweb2.0.com, blackweb20.com/tastemakers, and people get to vote on who they think their favorite tastemaker is. You put in the name, their Twitter ID, and your reasoning in 120 characters or words or something like that or less as to why you think they're a top 50 tastemaker. I think the first 15 were already chosen by BlackWeb 2.0, and then the rest of them were chosen by people out on the internet. So definitely happy to be chosen as one of the top 50 because we're in there with some pretty good company. There's a bunch of people, BDPA, Tristan Walker from Foursquare, which I want to get on this show. So Tristan, if you listen to this, I want you on our podcast. I want to interview you. I want to talk about Foursquare, and which is a location-based application. But we want to hear from you and how you got involved with Foursquare, how you got involved in technology and things like that. So Tristan Walker, we're looking for you. What else?
You just did an interview too at that what is it?
AURN. American Urban Radio Network, that's right. Betty White, she hosts a show there called Surfing the Net, and that's www.aurn.com. You have to excuse me, I'm getting over a cold. But she contacted us, and I called her back, and she said, I want to do an interview with you. You're in technology, and I want to get your opinion on a couple of things. And the interview mainly centered around President Obama's initiative to get broadband in more areas around the country, and more importantly, inner city areas. And she's wondering what I thought about that initiative and what I thought the impact of, the inner city not having the internet, broadband available to them. And we talked about that, and I have my opinion on it. And I think that broadband not being available in the inner city is not 100% accurate. It's definitely available. If you go to any public library, majority of the time they have, internet access. Now, I know there's parts of the country where, just because of the geographical location that they're in, may prohibit them from being able to have even a library that has internet. And I understand wanting to get it, to those parts of the country and to those areas. My whole thing was that it really isn't, the biggest thing to me isn't about not having access to the internet as much as it is, what are we doing when we do have access, or what are we doing on the internet? Are we using it as a tool, or are we using it as a toy? I was just at the library a few days ago, or a few weeks ago, I should say, and there was a bunch of kids in there, and everybody was on Facebook. They weren't, researching and learning things, and they were on Facebook, which I'm not knocking Facebook, and I'm not saying don't get on Facebook. I'm saying, when we have this opportunity, when we have this opportunity to get on the internet and to, expand our knowledge and expound upon what's out there, in the world, are we just doing it to further put ourselves in a box by just jumping on, Facebook?
Yeah, so we need to use the tools that's given to us for some good, too. I mean, like you said, it's nothing wrong to play here and there, but are we actually going to use the internet to try to expand our knowledge? Are we going to, you're at the library, and they're surrounded by all this knowledge, not even taking the time to even learn how to develop a website like Facebook. You're at the library, there's HTML books, there's whatever. Start to play, hack around, and this could be somewhat to some of us being as adults. Are we exposing our kids to technology or anything, whatever they're interested in? Are we engaging in their life to try to help them be better at whatever it is that they want to do? Are we giving them the opportunity to be something, to be somebody?
I think the problem is kind of twofold. One is the parents aren't taking enough time to guide the kids when they're on the internet. Hey, you can jump on Facebook for an hour, but after you spend 2 hours doing this research on this. We were talking to, Blair last week. I was bringing up the fact that my stepmother, she made me write reports every day after school, me and my brother. Like after school, open up the encyclopedia, pick a subject out of the encyclopedia, and write a report about it. Right? Which was, at the time, I thought it was kind of, kind of sadistic. It's like, hey, I just came from school. I don't.
That's why you're so good at writing now, man.
I guess so.
I always send anything I'm about to put out, I always send it to Greg. Like, hey, dude, can you proofread this, man? He comes back with something like, if I was you, I'd do this. I'm like, wow.
Man, I guess that's just I guess it could be from doing all those reports. But it did. I mean, look at the things that it helped me, and it helped me to be able to, sit down and focus on a topic and research it and write about it, and it really boiled down to helping me want to learn more about things. Because had I not opened up the encyclopedia, I would have never have known about things in the encyclopedia, which is a bunch of knowledge, a bunch of information. I think that was the first place I learned. I learned that the sun was, 93 million miles away from the Earth. Seriously, that's, picked up the S section of the encyclopedia, of the S volume of the encyclopedia, and wrote about the sun. And that's why I learned about how the sun generates, heat and generates light and things like that, and how far it was away from the Earth. I mean, it just turned on a light bulb in my head, like, boom, I like learning.
It's funny you say that. I didn't have to write reports, but I remember my parents always getting sets of encyclopedias, and I forget the name of this one set we had. It was like you said, it was like A through Z, and it was these white and blue volumes, and I used to just sit there and flip through it and read it. It was a lot of cool information in there, man. But yeah. I'm glad I didn't have to do the report part.
Yeah, so I mean that's one of the excuse me. Yeah, that's one of the problems. The other problem is now my stepmother was in college at the time, so she knew the importance of education, right? I think the other issue is, now it's a pattern, right? It's my parents aren't educated, or my parents don't know, so they don't know to teach their kids, right? So we always look at, the kids aren't, but, look at the parents, look what's behind, them. Are they looking to further their education or their knowledge? Because sometimes they're not, and they pass it on to their kids, and they don't guide their kids like they should, and now their kids don't know. And then it takes.
Do you think some of that? Do you think some of that is due to us having kids while we're still young and not knowing the full repercussion of the things that we do, how it's going to affect us later on in life? I think
go ahead.
I'm sorry. I mean, I think I see, like, even some in my family, a lot of the younger generation, the things that they do now, they don't think about the future. If I do this now, how it's going to affect me in the future, They don't think of the different consequences. They just think about the now and just want to do. And some, too, is what they're exposed to. Again, we're going back to, am I exposed to certain things to help me in life? I remember reading books of some successful engineers like Steve Wozniak and Linus Torvalds. They had influences in their life at a younger age in the engineering side of things. They used to sit with their father or their grandpa and was being shown how things worked. And this takes me back to that workshop we did with Frank Hill at Cincinnati State when we was trying to pull more African Americans in the technology field. After the workshop, we had the opportunity to sit with Frank Hill and talk a little bit more about his background and how he was able to raise his 3 boys who are very successful. 2 of them went to MIT and now work at Intel as engineers designing processors. And one thing he told me, and I think he was there too, he was like, you know what, I'll always engage my kids, and when they was interested, I didn't shun them away. I didn't push them away. I allowed them to sit there with me when I was hacking around on the computer and stuff. And when they was interested, I showed them things. But as they got older, they got disinterested because they wanted to be with their friends. But they always came back. He wasn't hard on them saying, you have to do this, you have to do this. He kind of made it fun for them, And now, look, hey, the career done took off and very successful. And I would even like to get an interview with them at some point in time on our podcast if we can. So if Frank Hill listens to this, hopefully he can spread the word to his boys and they can come back and do an interview, and we'd like to see what they're doing for Intel, if they can talk about it, or if they have any if they have any suggestions for the younger generations and stuff like that. That would be cool. And for me, myself, a little bit about my background, I had my uncle, he owned an electronics store in Chicago when I used to live in Chicago, and I remember just going there and watching him work on TVs and VCRs and computers and stuff. I didn't know everything that he was doing, but I just remember looking at him work on this stuff, and I'm picking up circuit boards like, man, this is like a whole digital city here. What is going on? All these resistors and capacitors and transistors, something's going on here. You know, it's making this TV work. And I was excited. I was like, man, I have to figure this stuff out. I used to ask him a bunch of questions like, what is this? What is this? Why are you changing that out? How you know this is broken? He used to show me how to troubleshoot it. You know, you had to meter out and stuff like that. And if it wasn't supplying the right amount of voltage like it's supposed to, you had to swap it out. And sometimes you can just smell the burnness of the circuit board. But I was kind of exposed to that stuff by him, which triggered for me to want to learn more about computers. And I remember you was mentioning something about that movie War Games. that kind of got you going. I remember watching that.
Yeah, I think if you look at what the common denominator amongst a lot of people in technology, especially African Americans, you'll find that somewhere early in their life they had somebody somewhere that influenced them, right? And like I said, this is a pattern, right? So you talk about, you know, people like, you know, Steve Wozniak and Bill Gates and things like that, and you see that they had somebody influence them, and now their influence has carried them into, you know, to success, and now they're able to influence their kids, and then their kids will be able to influence their kids. I think where the problem lies is, you know, somewhere, you know, back in the past or whatever, there was a break, and which I think it's a cultural, and I think it's a social thing where somewhere there was a break in, you know, the education and our people, you know, being educated. Because if you look at all, you know, people who are successful, or people who are, say, for instance, athletes, you look at a lot of athletes, and this, look at somebody like, what's the Barrys? Rick Barry, right? Famous NBA legend, player. He has 4 sons, and I think 3 of them, maybe even all 4 of them, played in the NBA, right? You look at Michael Jordan's kids. Now, I don't know how good Michael Jordan's kids is, but he had kids, and they good, you know, pretty good in the NBA, right? You look at Grant Hill's father, Calvin Hill. He was an NFL, but he was an athlete. Grant Hill goes on. What does he do? Plays in the NBA. He's a famous athlete. Well, the reason I'm mentioning this is because of the pattern. You know, the kids look at their parents and they say, hey, he's doing this. I can relate to that. I can do this, right? The problem is with technology is our kids don't have enough people to relate to. They don't have enough mentors. They don't have anybody who's out there changing their minds about, hey, this is something that you can do. Now, with me, you know, I always.
Hey, Greg, before you go off that point, I just want to add to that so we don't have to completely leave it up to the parents, because sometimes the parents may not be able to expose those things to their kids, but building a community like we're trying to build, hopefully we give the parents a place to point their kids to.
Exactly.
You know, because again, it takes sometimes a community to make a change. And again, parents may not have the time or resources, but we would like to be able to give them a place to point their kids to come to, or they can have mentors to help them.
Yeah.
That's all I wanted to say. I don't want you to lose your thought where you was going with that.
Well, I was just, saying basically where my influence or where the origins of me wanting to get into technology came from. And it was two things. One was war games. When I seen war games, I was like, boom, I want to hack. I want to get into computers because this guy's changing his grades on the fly. Not that I wanted to, engage in anything illegal or anything like that.
You probably didn't have to change your grades right now on those reports, man.
But it was just cool to see this guy doing this with computers. I thought it was one of the coolest things ever, right? My mom's boyfriend at the time was an engineer. I knew he did, he was like a video technician as well, but he used to take me to work with him on Saturday mornings, and we would get on the Metro bus to go to Southern Ohio College, and on the bus, man, he would open up schematics. And now I wasn't 100% sure what the schematics were at the time. I just seen that they were all this, he was talking all this, circuitry and technical stuff about circuit boards and about capacitors and inductors and all this stuff, and I'm just sitting there like, wow, like this is really, it's interesting. I don't know what he's talking about, but it's interesting because what he's talking about sounds like it's very intelligent, right? So that was another influence. So my father at the age of 12 bought me a Commodore 16. That's not a 64, 16.
Nice.
Didn't have a monitor. It actually had outputs that hooked up to my black and white TV, right? But it contained, I'm pretty sure it had to be some type of DOS OS because I was able to write basic programs with it, using the basic language programming language, right? So that was my introduction into it, and I was hooked. I was writing, real simple programs about, hey, enter your name. And I'll put my name, Greg. And, oh, hey, Greg, how are you doing today? Just stuff like that. Nothing, super complicated. I think one of the most complicated things I did with it was I made it into a alarm clock, calculated the number of minutes in an hour and then the number of seconds in a minute. And
so you were just hacking around on it, man.
Yeah, and awesome. Just made an alarm clock. It basically, the number of seconds in the hour, I should say, calculated all that, and then how many hours do I want it to be? Well, it'd be this number of seconds, right? Created this loop that looped at 1 second intervals, boom, 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 right? And then when it's finished, it'll break out of the loop and emit a sound on my television. So what I would do was, at the end of the night, I would turn. This is funny. I would turn my TV on. Like we're supposed to have the TV off. So what I did was, I turned my TV on, but I turned the brightness all the way down, so it looked like it was off. Right.
Nice.
Then what I would do was I would turn the volume of the TV all the way up. So when the alarm went off, when it broke out of that loop and it went off, boom, we would hear it, right? But I couldn't be. I may have had to make sure that the TV was, totally black, or I would get in trouble for having the TV on all night. But yeah, so
you invented your alarm clock.
Yeah, I mean, I had an alarm clock, an actual alarm clock. It was just the fact that I was able to do it and do it on the computer.
That's what I was going to say. You was able to build that alarm clock.
Yeah, pretty much. So that was, and I would like to talk. I know you said you would like to talk to Frank Hill's son. I want to get Frank Hill on here as well. Talk to him. Yeah. Talk to him first, and then talk to the sons, and get their their story and how everything worked out with them. And I think that'll be pretty interesting.
Yeah, Frank Hill has a real good motivating story, man. I was really digging his presentation, at that workshop, and I wish they had more time for everybody to hear that whole thing. So hopefully if we do it again at Cincinnati State, that they will allot more time and give the students more time to listen to everything, or even let him go first, because he had a pretty good, interesting story and a pretty good background and a lot of knowledge to share. And while you're talking about computers and stuff, I remember growing up in my house, my parents had a computer, but they was kind of fearful of me using it or breaking it. So I really didn't get the opportunity to play with theirs as much. But that kind of motivated me to get my own computer and build a computer. So I remember every time I would get money, I used to save my money to actually buy different components of a computer to build it. So I did a little research, and I wrote down every piece that it took to build a computer, from the motherboard, processor, memory, sound card, everything. So as I got enough money, and sometimes my parents would match me if I was doing really well in school and stuff. So they'd say, okay, how much money you have? And I'd say, I have this much. And they actually gave me the money to go out and buy that component. I didn't have enough money to get everything at once, so I would buy that component, and when I got it, like the motherboard, I come home, I read the motherboard manual, and I get online and try to read more about motherboards and the processor, the whole 9 yards. I went down the list, and I finally was able to put everything together. I was like, all right, I got this computer, I got all these components. What next? What do I need? Operating system, you know? Then I was like, how do I get an operating system on here? So I was able to call a friend of the family who I knew that was into computers and stuff, and it's like, hey, I built this computer. I need to get an operating system on here. So he came over here with his Windows disk, and he never built a computer, but he knew how to load it and stuff. And so he was pretty excited, like, man. Until this day, he was like, man, I never built a PC until I linked up with you, Ronnie. And he was a lot older, so it was pretty exciting. It took us a little bit of time to get the OS on there, but once I got an OS laid down on there, man, it was like all she wrote, dude. I mean, I was hacking around because it was mine. I could tear it up and try different things and reload it. Then I started getting into Linux, and I mean, and at that time, Linux wasn't easy to install. You know, it wasn't like it is today.
I remember some of those
Linux,
early distributions.
Yep. So during the day, I was out kicking it with my friends and playing football and basketball and stuff. But at night, I came home, I was hacking on that computer, man. And my parents would be like, what are you doing in there? And, I mean, it was a whole other world that I was exposed to. And to this day, none of my friends really knew that I was a geek, you know, until now. Now they was like, man, you still messing with those computers, Ronnie? I was like, yep.
Yeah, that's I actually got out of after my first computer, man. It went on a fritz. I tried to fix it using some makeshift solution that didn't work, and fried my computer, and I got out of it for a long time. And you know, but I always had it in my heart, and I knew that I would always come back around to it, which I eventually did. But you know, the biggest thing is that if the first thing is you have to find out what your kids are interested in, right? So that falls back on the parents of, you know, building a relationship with your kids to find out exactly what they want to do, what they like doing, and then you can use that to guide them. Now, you can use the internet with that, because if they're interested in something, you know, most likely they don't have all the knowledge on it, and you can use the internet as a tool to help them learn more about it. So if they're interested in sports, right, you can say, hey, I know you like sports and everything like that. Here's some ways you can look on the internet to find out, you know, the best ways to eat, or the best way to work out, or, you know, how to increase your agility or your speed. You know, don't just sit on, you know, get them on there and say, yeah, boom, you know, check out ESPN.com. No, you know, make it an asset to them. Make the internet an asset to whatever it is that they want to do. You know, whether it's sports, music, technology, education, it's anything, man. It's so broad. The internet's so much knowledge and information out there. Using it just as a toy or using it to, jump on Facebook is one small percentage of what it can actually do.
I also want to touch on this one point too. It's like I really believe there's no age, well, I should say, kids can start learning at a very early age. Even though they can't talk or anything, they are processing so much information. And if you just expose them to the right things, it will go a long way. And when they start asking questions, don't give them generic answers. Don't be like, oh, he won't understand. Because kids understand.
Yeah.
You see a 2-year-old kid singing rap songs and stuff,
Yeah.
I mean, they understand. So when they ask questions, give them the answer. I know sometimes I mean, I know sometimes you may be tired or don't feel like being bothered, but that's the time when you need to engage and teach them when they asking all those questions. And I know sometimes I'm guilty when my kids ask me questions, and if it was a long day, but then I always come back and try my best to be like, hey, this is why we don't do this, or this is why you should do this, or this is how that works, and don't seem as frustrated because then they go elsewhere to get their knowledge, They go somewhere else, and sometimes it's the streets, where people are listening, and someone's going to teach them how to be the best drug dealer or something,
Or even more so, they'll teach them the way that you wouldn't really want them to be taught, right? Like even when it comes to, for instance, even when it comes to, now this might seem a little over the top, but this just drives home a point. Even when it comes to male and female organs, right? Genitalia, right? There's medical terms for that, right? And if you don't teach your kid, if your kid asks you what that is, and don't worry about that, they're going to find out what it is, and it's going to be most likely from somebody who knows the slang terminology for it. The next thing you know, that's what your kid is going to be saying it is, right?
Yep.
So
the point is, engage, answer those questions when they're young, man. I mean, they're thirsty for knowledge, and that's the time to tell them, or try to point them in the right direction. Say, hey, talk to your uncle, your aunt, or I have a friend that who knows about that stuff, And I mean, that's the best time to learn. And
So I mean, that was the whole basis of that entire interview was, what is it? What can we do? And things like that. That was with American Urban Radio Network. Hopefully that'll be airing sometime later this month, which this is about the end of the month anyhow, or early December. So when that comes available, we'll definitely be putting that up on Twitter and on the site and on LinkedIn and everywhere else where we got our hands in. Speaking of Twitter, I don't know if we talked about this, but we do now have our forum discussions now being fed into Twitter. So that helps because now you know what's going on with Blacks in Technology, and now that helps us with people coming to visit Blacks in Technology to see, hey, what is this all about? We've had some interesting discussions on there. We're getting more and more people visiting the site every day, which is pretty exciting as well. So enough about philosophy. Let's talk some tech. What's going on?
Hold on, Greg. Before we move on, one more thing. I'm not sure if you mentioned also about the Black Web Tastemat makers. I know you mentioned that was voted in, but they also did an interview of us, and that should be posted here within the
next week or two on their site as well. And I also wanted to talk a little bit more about our backgrounds and our careers. I know you said when you was 12 years old, how you was into computers and stuff, in a period you left computers. But since you got back into computers, your career has like been booming, skyrocketing. I mean, I never really seen someone move up as fast as you have. Do you have anything to talk about? How can others come into it? Because I want to talk a little bit about my career path as well, but I wanted to hear from you.
Well, my whole thing was I had to make up for lost time, right? My work ethic has always been there. You know, no matter what I did, it's my primary job. I was always being recognized, and this is not to toot my own horn, but you know, it's just the truth. I was always recognized for being a hard worker, right, above and beyond what my peers are doing. But and I did a lot of labor type work. You know, I drove a truck, you know, delivering building materials, delivering sheet metal, all types of stuff like that. But everybody always recognized, you know, how smart I was. And I always took pride in my intelligence. There was nothing to hide or anything like that. It's just, you know, it was me. But I got out of computers for a long time, and I got into other things. I did music for a while, but I always knew I would come back to, you know, computers. And when I did, you know, I started out. Really, I just started I got an older computer, and I started out at a retail computer chain called Micro Center. Started working out there, and I was working in
That's funny. I worked there when I was in high school. Go ahead, sorry. Yeah.
So I worked out at Micro Center. I was in the accessories department. You know, nothing, you know, fancy about the accessories. I wasn't selling peripherals. I was selling cables and, you know, CDs. But being around people who were into computers helped, you know, because I'm looking at some of these guys, you know, when they're talking like, wow, you know this, you know about, and it helped me. And I tell you, another big thing that helped me was the fact that they had a books section, right? So I got discounts. So that's where I got my first A+ book. So it was basically, you know, I knew I had to jump in and really, you know, hit the ground running. I couldn't lax, you know, a second at all. So started out doing retail, moved into I had a job doing, it was really, really low-level tech support for a bank. It was for their website. So it really I wasn't troubleshooting like OS issues or application issues. It was, hey, I can't log into your website. What's going on? Clear your cookies. You know, restart your browser. You know, stuff like that. So it wasn't even anything but I liked the fact that I was somehow involved in technology. That's what I thrived on. So from there, I got a job working at a local ISP doing tech support. This is actual tech support. But this is, you know, troubleshooting internet connections. Hey, I can't get online. Reboot your modem. Oh, my modem's not working. Let me see if it's trained. You know, stuff like that. I didn't have to do like a lot of OS things. As a matter of fact, they had us refrain from messing around on people's OS or doing anything like that. It was just walking them through some steps, or walking them through how to get connected to the internet, things like that. Then I had another, you know, tech support job, and this was like really the first. I'm not going to say true tech support, but this is the one where it encompassed more than just, you know, reading from a basic script. It was like, you know, I might see an issue here that I haven't ever seen, and, you know, but troubleshooting an OS issue or troubleshooting an application issue. So I had a few tech support jobs before I actually landed a job. I mean, and I was at it all the time, studying all the time. Anybody who knows me, who knew me back then, would say that guy had he's always in the book. He always was, and I did a lot of self-studying, right? It was more self-studying than anything. So self-study, go home, jump on a computer, break it, try to fix it, stuff like that, follow what's in the book, see if I can learn from there. And once go ahead.
I have a couple questions before you move on. First one was at Micro Center. Were they still doing this? I remember when I was working there, at the end of the month, if they didn't sell all their magazines, they ripped the covers off and allowed the employees to take them home. That's the first question.
Okay.
And second question is, in your career, not to be all negative and get on the negative side of things, but in your career, have you felt that you've had to work a little bit harder because you are African American, or have you seen much opposition or anything being an African American trying to be in a professional IT work field?
Well, let's to answer the first question. No, some of the perks for working there are, of course. Hello.
I'm here.
Okay. The perks of working at Micro Center was we did get free things, every now and then. The vendors would come in and they would, we'd sit through a vendor's training class or something like that, and we would get products from the vendor that were free. Another thing, we would get discounts. I mean, big discounts. I think they actually stopped doing this after a while, but we used to get huge discounts on stuff, especially, and even on marked down stuff, we would get big discounts. But I never did participate in the where they would rip the covers off of old magazines. I never did get any magazines from there. The second part of the question is, I really can't tell, because I was always a hard worker, and I always tried to outwork anybody. I don't care who you were, If we were, basing what we did on, our performance on call stats, and then resolution rate and things like that, then I'm trying to beat you, right? I don't care who you are. If you're white with the best, call resolution rate or with the most calls, then I'm trying to beat you. If you're black, then I'm trying to beat you. And so it really wasn't. I didn't really notice any. It seems to me that in the technology field, it seemed like people recognize intelligence, right? And they respect an intelligence. And as long as I showed that I had intelligence and I knew what I was talking about, I didn't get any pushback or anything like that. Now, there were people who would kind of brush you off. These are people that were on the same, help desk or tech support or whatever with me, who would kind of just brush me off and not, think twice or help me out or anything like that. I just learned to stay away from those people. You don't want to help me out? All right, then, I'll bounce over to somebody else who will. But I'm not going to let you deter me from doing what I want to accomplish here, and being the best that I can be. So, of course, there are people that, I ran up against that who didn't like me, and whether or not they didn't like me because of my color, my skin, or what, they just didn't like me. Maybe because they knew, I worked hard or something like that. But, yeah, so I didn't really feel a lot of opposition as far as that went. But there are always people that I ran into that, didn't like you for some, one reason or another.
Yeah.
So then, I went from, tech support after doing a lot of studying and doing a lot of, just a lot of self-studying, man. I was self-studying, Linux. I got, a few certifications. Started learning more about Windows servers and things like that, and landed my first network administrator's position, and moved on from there to another systems/network administrator's position where I'm currently at right now. And I'm learning stuff all the time, and I'm always studying, and people kind of get on me, like, you always, which is, I'm like, hey, I gotta make up for lost time, so I'm constantly doing this, and that's why I push so hard, in everything that I try to do, because I want to be better. I want to have the knowledge that these other people have, and because I always feel like I'm making up for lost time, so.
Yeah. So, well, I was going to hop into my little career track.
Tell us, yes, we want to hear about that too.
Yeah, my career track and somewhat of my career track kind of motivated me when you and I linked up about talking about Blacks in Technology websites. Some of my experience in my career track kind of motivated me to want to assist with this website and develop this website because of some of my earlier experience. And like I said, I started with computers young. Right in high school, I ended up getting this co-op position at this insurance company in their tech department. I really wanted to go to their networking department, but they only allow college co-ops to go into networking. So at that time, I was like, man, I'm already building computers and stuff. I want to do something different, something new. But they only allowed high school students at that time to do co-op in their PC tech department. So I started off in their PC tech department. While I was in high school, I studied for my A+ certification. I got that, and when I graduated, they said, offer me a position. Money was good for being in high school or right out of high school, and they also offered to pay for college, which I wish I would have took full advantage of that just because it's good to get your degree and stuff. It looks good on your resume. At that time, I really wasn't still in college or school just because I felt that I wanted to do more tech stuff, study more certifications, and I felt that at that time college wouldn't really help me in my IT career unless you wanted to do management, and I really wasn't still in management because I was like knee-deep in the trenches. So anyway, I started off out of high school in their PC tech department with telling us, hey, I do this full-time for a couple of years. I can move on to somewhere else. But my foot got stuck in the door, and I was in their PC tech department a little longer than what I wanted to be in there for. Every time you try to transfer out, they say, you need this experience, that experience. So that kind of motivated me to actually go out on my own and do a lot of side work so I can present to them all this extra experience that I have. And eventually I was able to go to their application development team as a sysadmin. I helped the developers push out their code to the application servers, troubleshoot it, and stuff like that. In the meantime, business was also picking up on the side. I had a company called New Gen Secure Solutions, and what I did was start studying a lot about virtual offices because I felt that eventually a lot of companies are going to be allowing their people to work from home, and they needed some solutions to make it where they don't have to have a huge brick-and-mortar office where they can do stuff like that. So I started playing with Asterisk and some other open-source stuff like Sugar CRM, and I came up with this whole solution where you can have a virtual office, voice over IP, and everything. So I ended up implementing some solutions for a company, Ohio Lending, auto body panels. I did some work for the Department of Homeland Security, sold them a firewall, and assisted with setting it up and doing some network pen testing for them. So I was able to build my resume by going out on my own, and then eventually I left the insurance company, and I'm at the company I am at now as a systems engineer. And I'm exposed to a lot of different things being in the web hosting department. So I do a lot of Unix, Linux stuff, Apache, Tomcat, WebLogic, the load balancers, F5, working with the DBAs with the Oracle Rack solution, their MySQL. I mean, I'm doing scripting, Perl, a lot of different stuff. And I still do things on the side here and there for people if it's interesting. But some of the things that kind of what I hated in my career was I was always thirsty for knowledge. So I was looking for a mentor, and no one stepped up to be a mentor. So that kind of forced me, like you, to do a lot of self-studying on my own, which is cool because I felt that the information stuck better. But then also I started going to different user groups, and I recommend anybody who's listening to this is to participate in user groups and conferences, because that's where you're going to find a lot of your die-hard geeks that's willing to share knowledge. They like to hear themselves talk, so they're going to tell you everything. If you can get past their total geekiness, then sometimes I feel that there's a lot of cocky IT people. If you can look past all that and just say, I want the knowledge. I don't care who's giving me the knowledge, give it to me. I want to learn, you know?
Yeah.
So that's when my career started booming as well, when I started going to different user group meetings and conferences and stuff. And that's actually how you and I met, was at a Ohio Linux conference up in Columbus. And the first year you and I met, we exchanged information. Then we started chit-chatting online and on the phone. Then we met up again at the Ohio Linux conference, and we started noticing the same thing. Like, man, there wasn't a lot of African Americans here, and it wasn't that.
Where is our participation at? That was a huge thing,
because they got a lot of knowledge there. Go ahead.
Yeah, and I was going to a bunch of those conferences, and they were pretty much all the same across the board.
Yeah. So we kind of had the same feeling, like, man, how can we motivate African Americans to come to these conferences? How can we get the word out to tell them, if you want your career to boom? And it was a good way to social network with people, too, at these conferences. Then what can actually take you to another level, if you start participating by being a speaker at different user groups and conferences, because then people start looking at you as a subject matter expert. Yeah. But I know sometimes people can be frightened to give some speech at a conference or user group, because IT people can be brutal. They want to pick your talk apart and see if you really know what you're talking about. So sometimes it's always good to start a presentation off, hey, I don't know everything. This is stuff that I found, and some people may find it, because they will tear you up at some conferences. But I mean, you learn. You don't let that. You shouldn't allow that type of fear to hold you back, because if someone else can correct you, that just means you learn something else. Okay, you're right. You could be right. And I really never, in my career, I really never felt that I wanted to compete against people. The only person, and I tell my kids this too, I said, the only person you want to compete against is yourself, because I feel that you can grow more. Because sometimes what I've seen people do is, if they compete with other people, that's where they stop. That's their limit. Oh, I'm better than this person, so where do I go from here? I've always found that I stick to somebody, I learn as much as I can from there, and I just keep going. And I keep trying to challenge myself to be better, to know more, and to do more, because that's what I want to do for myself. And I mean,
I think one of the.
Go ahead.
I was going to say is, I think one of our biggest hurdles, man, as a culture in technology, has to be the engagement factor, man. We gotta engage in this thing, whether it's I'm not saying everybody needs to go out and talk, but what I find is, and I think Alfred Green kind of said this, is you have a lot of these 9-to-5ers, right? Which is good. It's okay for them. But even still, and I'll bring up our website as a case in point. We have over 200 plus users. Close to 220 users, right?
Yep.
Now, with what we're offering, which is on its most basic level, a social networking platform for African Americans in information technology, a fully functional forum for people to ask questions and engage and things like that. We have the social networking part of it to where you can build profiles and add groups and things like that. We're finding not a large percentage of people on there actually engaging. Right, and now I'm looking at it like, well, you joined the site, why not engage in it? Why not help out in some way by offering a little bit of your knowledge? Right?
Yeah.
The site is there. We created this site for the community because this is what we wanted to do is build a community where we didn't really see one. So,
well, at least if they're not finding anything on the site that they feel that they can participate in, at least know the initiative that we're trying to do. So why don't you recommend or tell us some things that you would like to see on the site, or that you can even take initiative on the site and lead up yourself to get other people to engage in that initiative? Because we do have a few. Go ahead.
Make a suggestion. And I'm not trying to chide anybody or anything like that. I'm just saying that's one of the things that I see, amongst African Americans in IT is that, some of us talk the talk, but don't walk the walk. You want things to be better, but yet you don't engage yourself in when things that are going on when there's resources out there, and I think that's something we just have to change overall. If we want to change our culture or our community and put it on a better path when it comes to technology, then our kids and our younger generation, excuse me, they have to see more of us being engaged, right? And that always comes back to what I always call FaceTime. If they aren't able to see us doing what we do, then they're not going to feel or think that they can do what we do. So if you don't have enough people out here on the site or out here, talking up technology to where they can see us talking up technology, then how do we expect them to be able to see in themselves doing or being in technology themselves if we're not even being engaged, So I think that's just something that we all have to step up and doing.
Yeah, and I think it's going to continue to get better and better, and we have a lot of people on our site, and I thank everybody for joining our site, and I thank all the people who's been participating in our site and who's been engaging in our site and giving us suggestions, and we've taken into account a lot of them, like that mobile app that Donovan, who's going to be leading and project managing, and we have our online education piece that I'm going to start to lead up and get some volunteers. I already have one volunteer who threw his name out there to help develop it. I know in our staging site, Greg and I pretty much put some pieces in place and was testing it out. But we're redoing our staging area, which is going to help with the mobile app, give more people access to the staging server, because right now our staging server been running out of my basement, and sometimes. But hey, it serves the purpose to get us off the ground and going. And now Greg's company, who's a hosting company, gave us the ability to host it there. So thanks to your company there, man. That was
and I'm gonna put the name out there. I won't receive any compensation for this, but profitability.net. We're a data center located in Cincinnati, Ohio, and my boss, which is a real cool guy, he, seen me on my site one day, and he was just inquiring, like, hey, what is that? And I told him, like, hey, this is a site geared towards promoting and encouraging information technology African Americans, and being a partner of mine started. And he was like, hey, anything that you need, you let me know, and I'll try to help out. So once the staging server went down in Ronnie's basement, I said, hey, we need a staging server. And we've been working on a cloud, infrastructure as a service project to offer it as a service at my job. And I said, hey, you mind if, I spin up a couple of instances, server instances in the cloud? No problem. So that's where our staging server is now located at. It's in the cloud at my company, Profitability.net. So big shout out to Profitability for allowing us to do that. Aaron Larkins is the CEO, and that's my boss. That's who allowed us to do it. So, Aaron Larkins, CEO, Profitability.net. Thanks.
Yep, thank you. And Greg had told me about a position that was opening up, and I was seriously thinking about going there until he just said he likes to beat his competition so badly. I don't know about going there now.
That's funny. Yeah, man. I mean, I'm just a competitive person, man. I play basketball a lot, and I'm just competitive, man. I like to compete, but I like to, at the same time, it's just a way for me to push myself, So, what else is? Go ahead.
Okay, now that would be pretty cool if we actually got to work together. But that's another thing about networking. You see how when people network, we're able to tell other people about these different opportunities,
Yeah.
And that's what I'm hoping our site can assist other people to do, You go in there and say, hey, we got a position open. Send me my resume. Send me your resumes. I hope we can build a community of trustworthy people that people are not afraid to vouch for each other, because I kind of find that lacking in our culture and community too, is vouching for one another, because we fear that they may screw up or mess up. We have to start building that trust amongst each other, and our site is a way to do that, because people can promote the type of things that they're doing.
Yeah. They can
put out their
skills out there.
They'll put your skills out there. Start talking at these conferences and music group meetings and networking, and letting people know that what you're doing, and also always stay positive, have a positive attitude. And that's one thing I found in my career that helped me, was have a positive attitude. I didn't mention one thing. After I felt that I had a little trials with always being the only African American on a team in IT. But like you said, you let your work speak for yourself. You work hard, and ignore the ignorance. Whether it's there or not, act like you don't see it. Unless they told you to do something that's just like out of line. So for the most part, people just try to throw things out there to see if you're going to bite on it. Don't bite on it. Just keep doing what you do, and ignore the ignorance, and keep excelling and working hard and dedicating yourself, because eventually you're going to be able to look back, and those people are going to be in those same positions. And I do that to this day. I look back, and a lot of people are still in their position where I started, because they was focusing on all the ignorance instead of their self and their career, And I remember, just because of my positive attitude and how I handled certain situations, I to this day I have this Caucasian guy. His name is Richard. He still calls me to check on how I'm doing in my career stuff, because I impressed him of how my work ethic was. And after a few years I'd been at that insurance company, he ended up coming to tell me that when I first started there was a poll going on in the office about was I a gangbanger or not. And I'm like, what? Wow. That was crazy. I just laughed at it, man. I was like, whatever. I said, it's a shame how ignorant some people can be, but just keep being positive. We're going to have different trials and hurdles, no matter who we are, but you always feel good when you overcome those hurdles, when you took the right steps to do it. You didn't lower yourself or have to step down. You know, we just keep moving forward. And the thing that motivated me, and I was excited about this site when we started talking about it, Greg, is because we can build this community of mentors for people to come to, you know, which I didn't have. And I know how much more important it would be, or helpful it would be to people who's trying to get into IT, to have a mentor, to show them the ropes, to explain to them the things that we didn't have when we was really doing our careers and having to self-study. And, I mean, you and I, we both have labs in our basement, like multiple computers that we can load and test things out on. But some of the hardest things to do sometimes is, especially if you're trying to learn how to program or do things, come up with different things to do in your lab, you know.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping that we can build different scenarios to give people experience with doing things, you know. Like most people don't know what to do after you install a 2000 server with Active Directory or a Linux Open LDAP server, you know, or what type of application should I program to do what? You know, if you're not doing it at work, it's how do you get that experience outside of work? And I'm hoping we can come up with different scenarios to give people different projects to do so they can get experience and collaborate with each other. And all our online education stuff is going to be built around that.
Yeah. You know, touching on that, we put a survey out there on SurveyMonkey about some features that, you know, people would like to see added to the community. Tutorials and education were the top two things. Study groups, tutorials, and education are the top ones. There's also some other ones, you know, I put, you know, audio podcast interviews. People want to see that. Online tech shows. People want to see that, which is something that we, you know, we're working on here to bring the community. So there's a few things that we have going on. We have the mobile apps project headed by Donovan Johnson. We had a survey out on which OS, which mobile platform that we wanted the mobile application to be developed on, and we're going to be going with Android for that. For all you Android lovers out there.
Yes, sir.
And like Ronnie said, he's going to be heading up the online courses, online education courses for the site. So we're going to get those out there. Now, there are tutorials and videos already out there on the site. We want to put it in the form to where it's, you know, more easily accessible and things like that. So this I'm sending it out to the community. To any members out there who listen to this podcast, we want to issue a challenge to you all, you know, to engage in the community. And what I mean by that is if there's people out there that's got tons of knowledge, if you have all this knowledge, let's get it on the site. You know, let your voice be heard as well. You know, if you got a tutorial you wrote or an experience that you want to share, let's get it on the site. Share that on the site. Because there's people out there who don't know how to do certain things or who don't know how to go about certain things that could benefit from hearing your experiences or seeing reading your knowledge and things like that. So I'm challenging our community, the members, to become, you know, more active in on the site, and let's make this thing blossom into what, you know, we know it can be. You know, if everybody, you know, is saying that they're doing this for a specific reason or a cause or whatever, and they want to see more African Americans, you know, who come after them thrive in this career field, then we got to start doing some things.
Definitely. And if, like me, not really good at putting things down on paper in words, hit us up. Let's do a podcast together. We can interview. You talk about this thing. Get a webcam. Record yourself talking about it. Let's get that knowledge on the site, like Greg said. And another thing that we're looking to do, and we mentioned it in our last podcast, podcast is the Tech Road Show. Greg and I, we talked about having conferences and stuff, but it may be a little bit difficult to get everybody in one location. So we said we want to make it accessible to as many people as possible. So we're trying to come up with a way we can do a road show so we can come to you guys. So when we hit your city, we expect to see a good turnout. And if anyone thinks that they have a good idea about how to assist with this, or if they want to be a speaker in that area, talk to them, because we're looking for that.
Contact us at socialbit.net or contact us at blacksintechnology.net. We're definitely looking for, people to help us out with content on the site. We're always looking for, content on the site. We're developers. So if you just want to, send in whatever you have, a tutorial or anything like that, if you got a video that you want to record, we'll get it up on the site any way possible so that it can be heard. Like Ronnie said, we want to do a tech road show. We want to do an online tech show because that's something that I've never seen out there is a video tech show for featuring all African Americans. I think that would be huge. It would be a huge visual piece that I think that our community needs, and we want to bring it. We want to be the people out there pushing this. So interviews. Anybody wants to be interviewed, don't. If you know anybody that you think would like to be interviewed, send us an email, contact us at blacksintechnology.net or contact us at socialbit.net. If you yourself want to be interviewed, you think you got an interesting story to share, send us an email, and we'll get you on the air, man. We want to hear everybody's story about what they're doing and their life experiences and things like that. So
let's do it. And if you're listening to this podcast, send it to your friends, family, because there's a lot of good information hopefully that we're going to be talking about on our podcast, and that's how it starts. We have to create our own positive media to help engage our community. So
this is just one aspect of it. We're going to be, doing a lot more podcasts, a lot of other, initiatives coming up to help out in this effort. So with that, we didn't, get into some nitty-gritty tech stuff, but we've got more podcasts to do that in.
I think our next one, we probably talk about certifications. What certifications are hot? What certifications that we have or what we're going for, and probably
how we
some more lab
we do to obtain them. Yeah, definitely. As well as some other, technology-related stuff. We need to start talking about more of that stuff, about Linux, about, server administration, tools that we use, networking, all that stuff we're going to be talking about. So tune in soon, hopefully next week. We'll get another podcast out there. What I would like to do, and this is real quick, and then we'll jump out of here. We're pushing over an hour, but what we want to do is we want to get a roundtable discussion going.
Yeah.
So using DemDem, right? We can have participants, and we'll find some way to moderate this whole entire thing. But using DemDem, we'll have users, dial into a conference number, pick a subject or a few subjects, and we'll go at it. I think if we can get people. If you want to be involved in something like that, email us. Email us some suggestions on topics. Email us some suggestions on what you want to talk about or anything, and we'll get the roundtable thing going.
That's going to be hot, Yeah. It's going to be like probably 4, 5, 6 individuals all talking about subjects. Tech subjects. So I don't even think I've really seen a huge roundtable podcast before. But I haven't listened to a lot of podcasts, but I think that's going to be hot.
Yeah, if we can moderate it properly, so everybody's not talking at once, which we can do. Then I think we can make it a success. So putting that out there for anybody, Anybody wants to talk tech, has a topic they want to talk about, or if you have suggestions on anything for the site, anything that you want to see on the site, just email us. Contact us at blacksintechnology.net. Contact us at socialbit.net. I think that's it. I'm Greg Greenlee, Ronnie Hass, and we'll see you next time.
Yep.
You want to say anything before we leave, Ronnie?
No, I just want to thank the community, thank Greg, the other co-owner, co-founder of blacksintechnology.net. I'm glad I met you, man, and I hope we could continue to put that positive attitude within the community and grow it like we envisioned when we said we wanted to do it. And hopefully we can get a lot more people on board with us, be part of the big team who wants to come in and volunteer like we've been volunteering our time. We're not trying to make money off of this. We're just trying to build a community. There are some efforts we're going to have down the road to try to raise more money for scholarship funds. We talked about selling T-shirts and using half the profits of the T-shirts to put towards scholarships and stuff like that, because we're real serious about engaging the African American community in IT and helping the younger generation. That's something we're passionate about and we're determined to make happen. So hopefully everybody out there can be on board and feel what we're feeling. So thanks for listening.
All right, so we'll see you next time.
Blacks in Technology.
Blacks in technology. Blacks in technology. Blacks in technology. Blacks in technology. Blacks in technology.